HBO's Bill Maher says gay has gone too far in his major new rules. HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and his popular segment New Rules is making dramatic headlines today that trans activists say go far beyond JK Rowling or Dave Chappel in discussing the LGBTQ plus community. In a moment, we will show you his highlights. For some, his remarks will be divisive. Others may cheer for Bill Maher's logic. Entitled New Rule Along for the Pride, he suggests on the eve of Pride Month that LGBTQ plus has gone too far and challenges our community to enter what Bill Maher believes to be a need for deeper discussion on identifying as gay and review the dramatic changes in America that are leading to culture wars, especially over the trans community. He points out that, quote, if something is changing at an unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it, end quote. Well, now we are. He points out that the LGBT population is roughly doubling every generation, from less than 1% to 20% in the last 80 years. He states, quote, if you were born before 1940, just 0.08% identify as LGBT. Boomers, 2.6%, 4.2% of Gen Zers, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z, end quote. These are actually facts that we have discussed at many times at Queer News Tonight. Bill Maher then adds the joke, quote, which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay by 2056, end quote. The segment on New Rules, unlike Chappelle's controversy, wrap anecdotal observation and then argument in the guise of a joke. He says, quote, when things change this fast, people are allowed to ask, what's up with that? It wasn't that long ago when adults asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? They meant, what profession, end quote. Bill Maher defends his very public stance and support on LGBTQ+ by saying, quote, we should always be mindful of respecting and protecting, but someone has got to say it. Not everything is about you, end quote. He then takes the position that the LGBTQ+ community is not above critical review when he says, quote, it's okay to ask questions when it is very new and involves children. The answer can't always be that anyone from a marginalized community is automatically right. Trump card, mic drop, end of discussion, end quote. Bill Maher is already taking criticism that he may have unwittingly succumbed to othering, the practice of blaming others for the purpose to divide. In one moment of New Rules, he criticizes transgender ACL lawyer Chase Strangio's position on Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, the transgender craze seducing our daughters. And then Strangio being selected to 2022 NYC Pride as Grand Marshal along with 3 other trans activists. He separates trans community and gay men as he delivers the joke, quote, what's missing here? Oh, right, a gay man. That's where we are now. Gay men aren't hip enough for the gay pride parade, end quote. We admit, as jokes go, it's pretty good. But LGBTQ+ activists tell Queer News Tonight today that Bill Maher's New Rules segment accomplishes what JK Rowling or Dave Chappel could not, using reasonableness and humor to divide and perhaps conquer. Proof to that point is that the first embracements today or even conversation of Bill Maher's segment was promoted by Christian and ultra-conservative media that use his words as a new book in their Bible of their culture wars, as if to say, see, your own guy gets it, right? An interesting turn on the table of this table, as Bill Maher has been so famously anti-religious and notoriously anti-Trump conservative. This story is evolving, and Queer News Tonight will follow it closely. Here are the highlights of Bill Maher's New Rules, and then we'll be back for a discussion. Watch this.
And finally, new rule: if something about the human race is changing at a previously unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it. Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z. Which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054. I'm just saying that when things change this much, this fast, people are allowed to ask, what's up with that? All the babies are in the wrong bodies? Was there a mix-up at the plant, like with Captain Crunch's Oops, All Berries? In the wake of America about to lose abortion rights, the ACLU recently tweeted a list of those who would be disproportionately harmed by this. You would think women might top that list? No, wasn't even on the list. Second on the list was LGBT. Really? Abortion rights affects gay and trans people more than, you know, breeders? I'm happy for LGBT folks that we now live in an age where they can live their authentic lives openly. And we should always be mindful of respecting and protecting. But someone needs to say it. Not everything's about you. When a book questioning the sudden uptick in transitioning children was released, a trans lawyer with the ACLU named Chase Strangio tweeted, "Stopping the circulation of this book and these ideas is 100% a hill I will die on." How very civil liberties of him. Chase, by the way, has just been named one of the grand marshals of this year's New York City Pride March, along with 3 other trans people and a lesbian. What's missing here? Oh, right, a gay man. That's where we are now. Gay men aren't hip enough for the gay pride parade. Compared to trans, gay is practically cis, and cis is practically Mormon. Yes, part of the rise in LGBT numbers is from people feeling free enough to tell it to a pollster, and that's all to the good. But some of it is, it's trendy. Penis equals man? Okay, boomer. Remember, the prime directive of every teen is anything to shock and challenge the squares who brought you up. It's why nobody gets a nose ring at 56. Dr. Erica Anderson is a prominent 71-year-old clinical psychologist who is herself transgender and who now says, "I think it's gone too far." The LA Times summarizes, "She's come to believe that some children identifying as trans are falling under the influence of their peers and social media. If you attend a small dinner party of typically very liberal upper-income Angelenos, it is not uncommon to hear parents who each have a trans kid having a conversation about that. What are the odds of that happening in Youngstown, Ohio? If this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them. If we can't admit that in certain enclaves there is some level of trendiness to the idea of being anything other than straight, then this is not a serious science-based discussion. Maybe the girl who hates girly stuff just needs to learn that being female doesn't mean you have to act like a Kardashian. Maybe childhood makes you sad sometimes, and there are other solutions besides hand me the dick saw.
Well, Bill Maher, new rules. It's shocking. One of the longest new rules. I'm a big fan of this show, first, and I'm a big fan of Bill Maher. One of the longest new rules I have ever seen. What do y'all think?
used to be a fan of Bill Maher.
Me too. Used to be a fan.
Used to be, and I love the fact that he hated Trump as much as we did, you know? And now it's gone all downhill. I mean, where do we begin? There's just so much crap there. Let's see. There was less than 1% in 1940 because it was against the law, okay? We would get persecuted and killed if we were out in public and loving on each other like we're so free to do now, Bill Maher. I mean, there's so much crap here that, like, it's mind-boggling.
And
mind-boggling.
And even the little bit of it that is quote unquote good, I will say, is gets lost in the mix of all that's so dangerous, because as noted, these Christian right-wing outlets will be taking these things out of context, the most harmful ones, and using them on loop.
And saying, look, even Bill Maher is supporting
even
us.
the liberal.
Right?
Yes.
thing.
You know
Even
what?
the liberals saying.
You know what bothers me the most about this is that we currently, with what happened in Buffalo last week, we are discussing replacement theory. It's not much different of what he's saying. He's proposing that the way we're going, the trend, the gays are going to be replacing the straight people in this country, and therefore we should be afraid. I mean, they're coming for us. Bill Maher, I mean, a guy like him saying things like this is very dangerous. You can find some humor in his comments, yeah, and the punchlines, and then, but that's no different than Dave Chappel.
No, and I don't find any humor in it.
No humor whatsoever.
And then he's also trying to divide us within our community, because then he says, oh, like being a gay man is not even cool anymore. So then you're separating the white gay men from the rest of the
Which is already a
LGBTQ
huge
plus.
problem in a lot of.
Well, and that's something we've
Yes.
talked about on the show. You always ask about that.
Even in our community.
Right.
It's a
You always
huge
ask
problem.
about that, yeah.
Huge problem.
And as a white gay man of many years, I say, fine, we've had plenty of our days. We need to be standing up for the trans people.
Newsflash for him, the New York Gay Pride is not the only gay pride in the nation.
No.
We have hundreds of gay prides in the nation.
Yep.
So we have plenty of gay prides where the Grand Marshal is a man or a lesbian, good for the trans that are leading the New York Gay Pride this year. Why is that had to be all measured through the lens of the New York, and the Brooklynites? No. The rest of the country also exists, and gay men are leading gay prides around the nation.
I'm curious to the big issue. Before probably 2 a.m. Saturday morning, Friday night, after Real Time aired, I probably had 10 texts already sharing and saying, my goodness, look at this, which I appreciate, because I didn't watch. I go back and watch Bill Maher. What do you think about the observations that are being made in certain circles in community that this is far more effective than Chappelle or JK Rowling's writings, that this is a reflection of the growing sentiment in America toward LGBTQ community, that this is representative of the growing attitude toward us?
When Bill Maher is representing a centrist, it's really, I just have to process that for a moment just to get to any next thought.
Right, because he has been so far to the left for so long that this is suddenly a different tone that he's taking, and it's a little unsettling.
But I've seen the changes in his show, the trends and the discussions, and how he's going after Biden in many commentary. It's always known that he's anti-religion, I get it, but particularly anti-Muslims.
In fairness to him, he's an equal opportunity humorist offender.
Right, of course.
So I have to say, in watching him, he goes after both sides. It's I think the more interesting observation with Bill Maher is he's really more in the middle of a very extreme left and a very extreme right.
But he's saying about Californians and Ohioans, it's not true. He's just saying it as a matter of fact.
Well, why isn't it? Help us understand.
Right,
why
because
his observation.
at least what I've seen lately, and through the many documentaries are coming out about children just trying to go through the process of transition, the ones that have chosen to, with the advice of their doctors and their parents. And I've said it before, I say it again, this is not a political discussion. It should be based on the advice of mental health advisors and doctors that are treating these children along with their parents and their I don't know if they have other support system. So the fact that he's throwing this, like, it's a matter of fact that in California we are basically creating a trans, and while in Ohio we are suppressing them, is bull.
It's bull.
See,
happening everywhere, right?
you hit on something that I think is very interesting. He is using anecdotal
Yes.
example to prove a point, as opposed to applying it to the broad situation.
And
that is
couched
going
as if it's great, and then using statistics that are a graphic that makes
Yeah.
it look like it's a
Yeah,
statistic.
yeah. But
Makes it look scientific almost, yeah.
It comes back to Chappelle tells a story about the suicide of his trans comedian friend, but then all of the other transphobic comments that he makes. Are we watching here transphobia or homophobia? Does anyone feel we're
No,
watching that?
because I think the difference between him and Chappelle is that there's a sensitivity here that Chappelle does not have. So Chappelle is completely insensitive,
Right,
and
but-
Maher definitely has a long established sensitivity.
Well, and
so I
that-
think that's not the issue.
And that tells you who he's surrounded with. Because again, Bill Maher doesn't do his own show
Well, yeah,
by
you
himself,
wonder-
like just him. You
Right,
know, he's
does
got
he
a whole
have-
team of people that also agreed to do this, you know? Oh, it's so new. Something so new that's affecting us. LGBTQ plus is not new. It's been around for years. And if you want to say on the books, okay, since the 60s, okay, fine. That's still a bunch of time. This didn't just happen like K-pop a couple of years ago, you
And
know?
you have to wonder if he does have LGBT staff people writing.
He
for
doesn't.
him. He doesn't have LGBT staff
no,
people?
I don't know for sure,
Okay.
but I would doubt that. That's what I mean. I don't think that somebody would allow somebody spewing this much out.
To that point, another thing that I want to zero in on, that we make sure that we get out on the table, because I know this is going to be the first conversation over coming weeks on new rules that have been established. What do you think about his observation that marginalized communities demand the requirement of observation of fact? Drop mic, we have a trump card, that's it. Don't argue with us. What do you think about that
I
observation?
immediately went to the black community and got mad.
Exactly.
I immediately went there and I was like,
Same.
what in the living F is this guy saying? Because that was the first community that I went to when I heard his
Same here,
speech,
same.
right?
It comes down to the same thing. He's an entitled,
Yeah.
privileged
White
white
man.
man that can, he think he has the right to say that. But the trans community has no right, because somehow you want now everything to be rubber stamp.
Right, leave it to a white cis male to say, not everything's about you. Oh, really?
Right.
Because everything is about
It's
you,
about
dude.
you.
I mean, seriously.
That is exactly right.
That's a mic drop.
He's a hypocrite.
I'm glad to drop that mic. So.
Yeah. Do you think how do you think the majority of the LGBTQ community will respond to this? This new rule segment was almost 10 minutes. That's a gigantic component of Bill Maher's show. How do you think the majority of our community is going to react to this?
I wonder, because he just came to Miami. He was just at the Fillmore.
And was
Right.
super popular.
Super popular. I wonder how the next tour will be. I can see now the wave is turning. So,
Yeah.
and
Do you-
I'll be,
He's just trying to build his audience, change
And
his
I
audience,
want to challenge that.
demographic.
Do you think the majority of the LGBTQ community would substantively? They're not sitting at Queer News tonight. They're not a panel of discussing it privately in the bar Saturday night. How do you think the majority of our community is going to respond to this?
a lot of his audience come from California. Sorry for you, New York. From Florida, and I'm sure you fill your theaters when you go on tour. Is the liberal on either coast?
White people, with all white people.
Or gay people, and we are a lot of his audience. He's going the wrong route here. I agree that we need to talk. Yes. Let's talk about it, but don't throw these facts out there like they are, true matter of a fact when you don't know that.
Yeah.
Saying that we're creating trans people in California, that's a little irresponsible.
It's right up there with grooming. I mean, it's even almost worse.
On the other hand, I know gay people who religiously listen to Howard Stern. And I'm always shocked because I just think of that he's not a friend to the community, but I know that there are gay people still listening to Howard Stern, and so I'm sure there are gay people who will still be watching.
But has Howard Stern done something like this? He
not
hasn't.
quite like this,
He
but in
hasn't.
the past he's done not the most gay-friendly stuff, but I'm
Right,
sure
sometimes
this
it's
is not
crass.
going to
But he hasn't done like women-friendly stuff, Greg. He's just, he really is an equal opportunity offender.
Yes.
You know?
We talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we don't think of Howard Stern as a great intellectual either.
What?
And I
No,
tend to think
no.
of Bill Maher.
Ah,
Maher
yeah,
is,
yeah, and I
for
was mad at
sure.
myself the beginning for laughing. I laughed at the joke at by 2056 we'll all be gay, and my first thought was like, good, yeah, we'll all be gay. But then I was like, wait a minute, no, that's not right.
Right, where's this going? Yeah.
And how many other people will he get with that?
To the focus in our reporting tonight that he succumbs to othering, either intentionally or unintentionally. Brilliant humorist. So probably intentional. I'm guessing, but probable. What do you think about the othering of divide and conquer, of taking principally, probably white gay men in opposition to trans in his illustration of New York Pride? What do you think about that moment?
Well, it seemed truly intentional because it was very punched. And I think it's incredibly dangerous for our overall community, the LGBTQ plus community in general, because there is already division that exists. It's already been a difficult journey to get to the point we're at currently. And it's it's a very dangerous precipice to be on that edge.
Yeah, it's that wedge between. We can't have that kind of wedge in our community. You asked us this, and it's happening now. I believe a couple weeks back, a couple weeks back, and you asked us, okay, how about if the G separated? Would they be better off? Those questions shouldn't even be talked about. Like we can't. We have to be unified no matter what.
And he should look back at Gay Pride in New York. This is, that I remember, one of the first times that they put a Grand Marshal that is a trans person. We should all be proud of that. Why should we be, rethinking this? Are we going to be excluded as gay men? What is that? He's proposing the replacement theory.
Right.
In the community at large and within the gay community. What is that?
But he is planting that seed
He's
for the
planting
gay
that
men
seed.
who listen to him. And there are a lot of gay men who listen to him, as you know well.
Yes.
And he's planting that seed, and people are going, and some of these gay men are going to hear it and go, oh, well, maybe he's right. Maybe he's more right. I haven't thought about it that way. And that's what it kind of makes me quite angry.
Okay, how about the straight people that could be our ally or maybe are on the fence and they don't understand us and they're thinking, okay, well, he doesn't like Trump. Okay, I don't like Trump either. All right, let me support him. And he's saying things like this.
Right.
It's scary.
Last question before we move on. We're going to talk about someone far worse. I'm curious, do you think that the go forward tomorrow, I know we're among the first in the nation having this kind of conversation about new rules that he did this weekend. Will we listen and participate in conversation with him, or will this just go,
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Will he? That's a better question.
That's
Okay.
a different question, right? But I mean, the conversation had to take place for sure.
Yeah.
I think he's constructive if we do it in a respectful manner,
Yeah.
right?
But my question is very specific. Let's take him out of the picture. Whatever he does next. Will LGBTQ community respond in a constructive, let's broaden the conversation, or we won't? What do you think?
I
help-
think
you can
HRC,
only
I think
help.
equality, I think task force, I think all these people need to go and say, hey, want to talk? Let's sit down, let's do this. And they are equipped to do it, and they've got our best interests.
If that's the case, and we have reached out to Bill Maher, please, I certainly hope you take that invitation, because we admire so much of what you do, and clearly more conversation is necessary. We'll stay on top of this story. It's going to become a gigantic story. It's going to become gigantic, no doubt. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT